KREM 2 News begins now.
Hello, thank you for joining us for KREM 2 News Week in Review. I'm Tim Pham. In the next half hour, we'll get you caught up on some of the biggest stories in the Inland Northwest this past week.
Whatever's going on here, like this man was born here. He's a U.S. citizen.
Over the weekend, a Spokane woman filmed an unexpected interaction with what looks like Border Patrol agents outside her home. She says in her Facebook post, a man in plain clothes came to her door saying he hit her car. She came outside, and the man began repeatedly asking her who else was home. She believes they were looking for her husband, who wasn't home at the time, but the roommate was. She says armed officers surrounded the roommate and began questioning him about his birthplace and asking for identification. The woman says her roommate is a U.S. citizen and was born in the U.S. Eventually, the officers told the roommate he was free to go and that the woman's car wasn't damaged. Jennifer Mesa, executive director of Latinos in Spokane, applauds the woman's efforts.
Because they stepped in, they recorded, they questioned the agents, and you can hear it on the video. Why are you here? Do you have a warrant? Why are you questioning him when he's a U.S. citizen?
Right now, Latinos in Spokane is on high alert. The organization says they've already been visited a few times by ICE agents. That is why they've decided to permanently lock their doors to ensure the safety of community members who visit here.
Meanwhile, Jennifer says the organization is holding rapid response training this weekend for community allies. It teaches anyone about government agencies relating to immigration, how they operate, and how to be an ally to someone who may be questioned.
And I definitely have seen an uptick in calls. I've also seen an uptick in worry and anxiety and fear.
Alicia Moss is an immigration lawyer. If you're approached by ICE agents or Border Patrol, she advises people to ask to see a warrant. She says these agencies usually have administrative warrants, which, unlike judicial warrants, are not signed by judges.
Because it's an administrative warrant, it doesn't have the same power as a judicial warrant. And there is no requirement for the person to surrender themselves under that warrant, to allow someone in their house, to allow someone in a private area of a business. But anyone can be in a public area.
We've reached out to ICE about this incident and the arrest of the former Spokane Community College student. We are still waiting for a response, but here's what we're asking ICE. What was the purpose of their visit to the Spokane woman's home last weekend? What is the status of the former student arrested by ICE this week? And how many arrests has ICE made so far this year in Spokane County? Amanda Rowley, KREM 2 News.
U.S. District Court Judge John Kunar was swift, issuing his ruling within 30 minutes, saying that birthright citizenship is a fundamental constitutional right.
Once again, the U.S. Constitution was defended, where the rule of law was defended.
Washington Attorney General Nick Brown, alongside several other states and the Northwest Immigrant Rights Project, declared victory outside the federal courthouse in Seattle for now.
The Constitution is what it is, and you can't simply ignore it because you think you've got a better way of doing things.
Birthright. That's a big one.
Both legal teams argued before Judge Kunar that President Trump's executive order that would end birthright citizenship under the 14th Amendment was unconstitutional.
We currently have a president of the United States who lies to the American people with imperpetuity and has a complete disdain for the United States Constitution.
In court, lawyers for the Trump administration argued that undocumented immigrants are not subject to the jurisdiction of the United States and therefore are not citizens.
I understand the arguments the Department of Justice was making today, and it is a real fringe legal theory that has not been supported by the Supreme Court.
Before issuing his ruling, Judge Kunar said if the administration wants to change birthright citizenship, they need to amend the Constitution itself, adding, quote, "The fact that the government has cloaked what is effectively a constitutional amendment under the guise of an executive order is equally unconstitutional." Legal experts say this will continue to play out in court over the next few weeks.
The policy would remain stayed for now because of the preliminary injunctions. We'd get quick resolution of the appeals in the 9th and 4th circuits, and then the losing party, will be at the Supreme Court in 4 or 6 weeks.
Another federal hearing is set for tomorrow in a Massachusetts court, and that involves 18 other states challenging the executive order. In Seattle, Bridget Chavez, King 5 News.
The Zero Emissions Northwest firm helps farms and rural businesses from Seattle to Boise become more energy efficient. The owner tells me there's about $2 million in funding that is now put on hold that is legally obligated to these farmers.
I spend lots of time in my car driving 25,000 miles to have a cup of coffee with a farmer and to build that trust.
The owner of the firm, David Funk, is dedicated to improving energy efficiency for farms. This is done through grants from the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
We help the farmer scope out the project. We help them apply for the grant.
Funk is the middleman. He helps farmers get grants from the USDA. Then farmers pay up front with the promise that the government pays them back.
Everything is spent up front, and everything is that farmer's money.
But now, with the pause on the Inflation Reduction Act, which the USDA's funding falls under, there is about $2 million of money farmers across the region have already spent. Funk does not know if or when they will see this money.
Really get into the point of questioning the credit of the U.S. if they're not going to pay their contracts that they've signed. So that is an current that I can't navigate.
The executive order states in 90 days the Trump administration will review reports from these government agencies that fall under the Inflation Reduction Act, but nowhere in the language does it guarantee funding will return, which concerns Funk for the future of his business, his clients, and his cause for cleaner energy.
Yeah, what does this look like? Well, I hope I'm around in 100 days.
And he hopes the trust of his farmers can be repaid.
Funk tells me he hopes he can bring back his employees, but right now he does not have clear answers and is still trying to figure out next steps. He did mention some farmers' feedback has been across the board, from furious to more understanding. We will continue to report on this as news comes. In the newsroom, Regan Gallo, KREM 2 News.
Welcome back. Thank you for joining us on KREM 2 Plus for your KREM 2 News Weekend Review. It's been a busy week here in the Inland Northwest. Let's get you caught up on some of the news you might have missed.
Just a few hours ago, Glenn Dylan Berkey appeared before a Spokane County judge. The prosecution asked that the $3 million bond against Berkey remain the same as he remains in Spokane County Jail.
25-year-old Glenn Dylan Berkey faces 3 felony charges, including second-degree murder relating to the killing of 13-year-old Gavin Looper. Looper's family sat in on the appearance. The shooting happened in the Hilliard neighborhood early in the morning on January 25th. Detectives say evidence shows Berkey allegedly shot 5 times into the back door of the home Looper was visiting. Looper was at a friend's home on Heroy Avenue. KREM 2 spoke with a witness to the shooting who says Berkey was familiar with the neighborhood.
Which created a substantial risk of death or serious physical injury to GBL.
Judge Jenny Zappone read the charges to Berkey on Monday. Berkey first appeared in Missoula County Court last week as a fugitive from justice. It was there when a judge said Berkey was wanted by the Washington Department of Corrections for running from police after the shooting. Berkey waived his extradition, meaning that within a day he was taken and booked into Spokane County Jail on a $3 million bond. Judge Zappone listed the conditions Berkey must comply with if the bond amount is met.
Must not come in contact with any witness listed in the probable cause affidavit, and no use or no possession of any firearms or dangerous weapons.
Now, a bond amount for Berkey is still set at $3 million. We're still working to try to find out when his next court appearance will be. We'll continue following the story as we learn more information. In Spokane, Connor McAvoy, KREM 2 News. This is the first pertussis death in Spokane County in more than a decade, and that's according to the Spokane Regional Health District. This comes as medical professionals say the rise in cases is at an alarming rate.
Pertussis, otherwise known as whooping cough, is a bacterial infection. The Spokane Regional Health District reports nearly 400 confirmed cases across the county, since last November.
Over 10 years ago is the last time we had an increase in cases that could even compare.
Spokane County Health Officer Francisco Velasquez says children are the most likely to get the infection and potentially suffer health complications once it's contracted.
We do know that children, particularly infants, are typically at the highest risk, particularly if they have not been fully immunized.
Velasquez says pertussis vaccines are recommended for children in a series of shots through the first 2 years of their life. He says as vaccine rates in the county are lower, the potential to spread pertussis is higher. He says the vaccination rates for community protection should be close to 93%. But in Spokane County,
we are in the high 70s.
He says adults contracting the infection get symptoms such as a runny nose, mild cough, and fever for about a week. But pregnant women and healthcare workers are advised to take extra steps to prevent spreading the infection. They include talking to your doctor, staying away from people who are sick, and practicing good hygiene.
I cannot emphasize that enough. If you're sick, please stay home.
Velasquez says keeping up with vaccinations for children and adults is an important preventative measure.
The best way to prevent transmission is prevention. And that, for many, starts with immunization.
KREM 2 reached out to Kootenai Health and the Panhandle Health District for current numbers relating to pertussis cases and corresponding vaccination rates. We'll share that information once we get it. Connor McAvoy, KREM 2 News.
Five adults and one juvenile.
2 more adults, 2 adults and a juvenile. 44 adults and 7 juveniles for Beauty Bay.
My name is Carrie Hugo. I'm a wildlife biologist for the Bureau of Land Management in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. I count once a week, starting in mid-November and go through the middle of January or until there aren't any eagles around anymore. It's a 12-mile route that I do. It starts at what used to be called the Beach House, which is now a marina on Coeur d'Alene Lake Drive. And it goes to Higgins Point and then comes out and goes around Blue Creek Bay, the head of Wolf Lodge Bay, and then I end right over here in Beauty Bay. Ooh, nice. A juvenile just came down right there, right by the road. It's good. It's not as high as last year. Last year was a record year. I counted 409 on December 20th. So that was a huge year, the most I've ever counted. But this year's still looking pretty good. Last week I counted 281, I believe. So there's still plenty of eagles. Just getting to the right spot to view them is the tricky part. Adult bald eagles are the ones that have the white head and tail. Juvenile bald eagles don't get that white head and tail until they're in their 4th year. I just have an area that I count, so I stay until I've counted every eagle that I can see on that spot. So when there's lots more eagles, I'm there a lot longer. I used to think I needed a clicker, but I've been doing it so long that I don't use one anymore. I just keep it all in my head and write it down as I go. And I do get asked a lot, how do you know you don't count them twice? So I always tell people I know I'm counting them twice. It's a 12-mile route. They move around in between my stops, but I also know I'm missing some too. So it's a trend. There aren't exactly 281 eagles on Lake Coeur d'Alene. It's just a ballpark that tells us whether numbers are up this year, down this year. We're hitting the peak and now it's going down. So it just gives us an idea of the approximate abundance of bald eagles on Lake Coeur d'Alene. They're purely here for these kokanee. It's a seasonal thing and then they move on south. So some of them will head down to the Snake River Plain in southern Idaho. Others will head over to the Klamath Basin in Oregon. Some will go all the way down to New Mexico. So they're just here for this little time, a couple months of time before they move on.
It has been quite the journey to Pullman for Washington State men's basketball forward Ndie Okorafor. He had lived in 5 different countries before he turned 18 and moved to the United States by himself at the age of 16 to pursue his basketball career. Allow me to introduce you to the most interesting man on the Palouse. Okorafor was born in March of 2003 in Lagos, Nigeria. After Ndie's first birthday, his family decided to relocate to Dundalk, a town of around 43,000 people in County Louth, Ireland.
My parents moved over to Ireland to just find a better job and better living compared to Nigeria. There's a lot of stuff going on over there. And Ireland is pretty safe small place.
Despite only being around a small black population and being taller than the other kids in school, Okafor enjoyed growing up in Ireland and playing the world's game.
I thought I was the same. You know, growing up, I thought I looked at everyone like I'm the same as them. So we would do the same thing. We play soccer every single day. So I grew up playing soccer my whole life.
Once he hit high school, Okafor turned his attention to basketball and began getting noticed while playing for the U16 Irish national team.
It was an honor to represent my country, you know, just singing the national anthem over there. You represent the country you have on the green and everything. Like, it just feels great, you know.
Once he turned 16, Okafor made his way to Dallas, Texas to chase his basketball dreams.
When I first arrived in Dallas, it was just very overwhelming. As a 16-year-old, you know, you're leaving from a small country and you're leaving a pretty big city.
Okafor went on to make stops in Canada and the NBA Academy in Mexico before ultimately committing to Cal to begin his college career.
It made me grow as a person and as a man, you know, meeting new people and being open to different cultures and learning other ways and how people are in different countries. So me living in Mexico was for sure an eye-opener, you know. The culture there is just completely different to here or Ireland and everything. So it made me just more open to meeting new people and different cultures and stuff.
After an injury ended his season early last season, Okafor hit the transfer portal and David Riley came calling.
One of my former players had played with him and just kind of said he was a guy that looked really good in practice and hadn't really got his chance. Would fit our system, fits us personality-wise, and so that was kind of the connection.
When I first came here, there was a lot thrown at me at first, so it took me a little while. It took me I would say a month to get everything down. But once I started to get settled and everything, it felt great. You know, being with these guys. You know, Dave has won in the past, so I trust what he says.
Now Okafor is looking to continue to be a strong rim protector off the bench before taking over as the Cougars' starting big man next season.
To have someone like Indeed that can come in and change the game defensively, offensively as a lob threat, I think it's really kind of an interesting idea. And as he's gotten more comfortable in our system, as he's getting more comfortable defensively and offensively, you're starting to see that impact grow.
I am the lucky one today because I get to do a special pick of the litter, and we have two Valentine's cuties here that are so sweet, and they are clinging to me. I love to be needed, and these two are clinging to me. They just want a home with lots of love and affection. So if you would like to meet, hi sweetheart, this is Tina, and this is Luna. They are three months old, Chihuahua mixes. I believe they came from California, and they need a forever home, and they are just looking for snuggles. And who's not? I mean, they are simply perfect and sweet. But it's also a special pick of the litter because we got some big numbers today from Spokane about adoption and fostering rates for 2024. They just released the final numbers, and we want to say a big thank you to all our KREM 2 viewers who have helped support Spokane over the years and continue to do so. So let's look at those numbers. 4,378 pets adopted last year. That's thousands of pets that found a home because of all of you. And then foster numbers are amazing too. 744 dogs, 1,378 cats fostered through Spokane. So again, thank you to everyone. And don't forget, they have lots of dogs and cats available at Spokane. So if you'd like to go meet one, make sure to check out Spokane or any of our area shelters that do so much to give our furry pets a home. In the meantime, I'll send it back to you.
Thank you for joining us for KREM 2 News Weekend Review. For the most current news throughout the weekend, you can watch our latest newscast and weather forecast right here on KREM 2+. Just look for the video in the bottom navigation menu. I'm Tim Pham. Thanks for watching.